Hey everyone, my name is Stanley, and in this video, we're going to see how to migrate and manipulate data in MongoDB using Python. So what's MongoDB? MongoDB is a NoSQL database, which means that data is not stored in structured tables, but instead, data is stored as key value pairs, similar to JSON and Python dictionaries. It also uses the horizontal scaling architecture, which keeps adding nodes horizontally, and the performance does not get affected in any way. Whereas relational databases use vertical scaling, and its configuration cannot go past a certain limit. So tables in relational databases are called collections in MongoDB. Rows and records are called documents in MongoDB. It also accepts data in any form, any data type, and any volume, which makes it very good for big data. So in this video, we're going to look at CRUD operations using Python, and we're going to look at the results using the Mongo Shell and Mongo Compass. We're going to load some data from a CSV file, from a JSON file, and a relational database management system into MongoDB. We're going to take a look at Mongo dump and Mongo restore. Last but not least, we're going to migrate some data into Mongo Atlas, which is the cloud database from MongoDB. So you're going to need two libraries here. So first of all, you're going to pip install PyMongo and then PyMongo DNS Python. CRUD operations. CRUD stands for create, read, update, delete. Okay, so let's go ahead and see how to carry out these operations in Python. First of all, you're going to import PyMongo, and then you're going to establish a connection between PyMongo or MongoDB and Python. So that's why you're going to use this method here called Mongo client. So this is the connection string if you want to connect to your local MongoDB instance. Okay, since 27017 is the default port number for MongoDB. Okay, so that's good. So if you want to create a database, you're going to do it this way, okay? You're going to create the database using this connection here. So this is how it works. If this database called empdb does not exist, it gets created, okay? And now in order for you to create a collection, you're going to do it this way. You're going to create the collection inside of this database that we got here. Once again, it works the same way. If this collection called employees does not exist, it gets created, okay? So how to insert a document. If you remember, we saw earlier that data in MongoDB is similar to a Python dictionary. So that's what I got here. Okay, I got a dictionary here. So I'm inserting this dictionary inside the collection called employees here. And we're going to use this method here called insert1. Let me go ahead and carry out this function. Okay. Since I have inserted this, we're going to look into MongoDB if that's been successful. So we can do this two ways. We can do this using the shell. We can also do this using Mongo Compass. Let's go ahead and see how to do this in the Mongo shell. To fire up the Mongo shell, you're going to hit Mongo. Okay. To look at your databases, there's something called show DBS. And as you can see, our database has been created successfully. Okay. If you want to look at the collections, you're going to have to use that database. Okay. Just one moment. Okay. And then if you want to look at the collections, there's something called show collections. As you can see, our collection has been added in successfully as well. If you want to look at the documents, you're going to hit db dot the name of your collection. Okay, make sure you got the exact same name here. Okay, and then there's this method here called find. Okay, and as you can see, our document has been added in successfully. Okay, so now what if you want to add many documents at the same time? Okay, you're gonna have a list here, and you're gonna have all these dictionaries inside of that list. Okay, so we're gonna use this function here called insert many. And if you forgot what my call here is, that's our collection here. Okay, so that's where we're gonna insert this. So if I go ahead and run that, let me go back to the Mongo Shell. As you can see, our data has been created or inserted successfully. Okay, let's also take a look at how the Mongo compass works. So I got the Mongo compass here, as you can see. Okay, if you want to connect to your local MongoDB instance, you don't have to punch in anything, you just hit connect. As you can see, our database is here, our collection is here, and we got 13 documents, and they look good, right? Okay. So how to read data using Python. So if you forgot what this here is, my client, that's the connection that we established at first. Okay, and we're going to use this method here called list database names. So our database is here. Again, there's something called list collection names. Okay, so that's good. So once again, if you want to look at the documents, we're going to use the same function here called find. Okay, but in Python, we're going to put that inside of a loop. Okay, so my call is the collection that we have created here. Okay, let me go ahead and run it. So as you can see, that looks fine. Okay, you can also limit the number of documents that you want to look at. Okay, that's when you use this method here called limit. Okay, so we're going to limit it by 5 documents, and as you can see, that's good. All right, so let's go ahead and see how to update documents. So we're going to use this method here called update1. Okay, and it takes in 2 arguments. The first argument is which document you want to update. And the second argument is going to be the new value that you want to put in instead of the old value. Okay, we're using update1 since we only have to update one document. Okay, and once again, this my call is the table that we're working with here. So let me go back to the compass and let's see what the data looks like. Okay, so as you can see, we got this document here, and the name is Michael and the address is Valley 345. I want to change this address from Valley 345 to Canyon 123. Let me go ahead and carry that function out. So that's been successful. Let me go back to the Mongo compass. Now, if you watch closely here, this is before we updated it. Now all I gotta do is I gotta refresh this, and that's gonna be different. Did you see that? Okay, nice. So how to update many documents at the same time? That's how. Instead of using update1, we're gonna use update many. Okay, but the query here is a bit different. We're using some regular expression here. Okay, and basically what this means is that wherever the address starts with the letter S, we want to set the name to John. So before I run this, let me go ahead and show you what it looks like before we update it. Okay, so if you want to look at a particular document or documents, you can pass in a condition inside of this find method. That's what we did here. Okay, let's go ahead and see what it looks like. So as you can see, Richard and Viola live there. Okay, so what are we going to update? We're going to change these names to John. Okay, all right. So let me go here. Let me run this. So that's been successful. Okay, so let me run the same loop again, and we're going to get new values now. And as you can see, our update has been successful. Okay, all right. So right now, let's look at how to delete documents. So first of all, let's count the documents inside of this table here. So we got 13 documents. Okay. So let me go back to Mongo Compass. And let's say that we want to delete this document where the address is Highway 37. Okay? All right. Let me go back here. So we're going to use delete 1. You're going to pass in your query where your address is Highway 37. Once again, my call is our collection called employees. Let me go ahead and run it. So it's been carried out successfully. Let's count the number of documents again. So it's not 13 anymore, it's 12. Okay, let's go back to Mongo Compass. So this is before we deleted it. All we gotta do is refresh it, and that's gonna disappear. Now, as you can see, it says we only got 12 documents. I'm pretty sure Highway 37 is not one of these addresses. Okay, all right. How to delete many at the same time. So we're going to use delete many instead of delete one. And our query is when the name is John. So if I go to our collection here, so we're going to delete the documents wherever the name is equal to John. Okay. So we got 1 and 2. We got 2 documents that we got to delete. Okay. Once again, my collection is our table. Let me go ahead and delete it. It says 2 documents deleted. Okay, so that's good. Now, all we got to do is once again, we're going to refresh it. Okay, if you look here, the count is 10 instead of 12. And you would not be able to find where the name is equal to John. Okay, let's also count the number of documents using Python. So that's good. So this is how you're going to delete a whole collection. Okay, you're not going to pass in anything at all inside of your method, and make sure you specify your collection. It says 10 documents deleted. Okay, let's also take a look at the count of documents. We got 0. Let me go back to Mongo Compass. Let's refresh it. And as you can see, this collection has no data. Okay, so yeah, that's how you perform CRUD operations in Python. Let's load some data into MongoDB. First, we're going to load a CSV file into MongoDB. So in order to do that, we're going to use Mongo Compass here, okay? But before we get started, let me go ahead and show you the CSV file that we're going to work with here. So that's the CSV file. It's called countries. If I go in it, so it's just a list of countries here and all these details about the country, okay? All right. So I'm going to go to Mongo Compass here. We're going to create a new database. Let's call it geography. And the collection, we're going to call it countries. Okay, let me go ahead and create it. So if I go inside of that collection, it's empty. Okay, so you're going to use this button here called import data, and you're going to locate your file here. So that's the one that we want inside of MongoDB, countries.csv. Alrighty, it looks good. Let's go ahead and import it. So as you can see, we got 250 documents, and the import has been carried out successfully. Okay, now let's go ahead and take a look at how to load a JSON file into MongoDB. Before we get started, once again, we're going to look at the JSON file. This time, we're going to load the states inside of MongoDB. So that's what my JSON file looks like. Okay. All right, let's see this in action. So first of all, we're going to create a new collection like before. And we're going to call this states. Okay. All right. So once again, if I go into states, it's going to be empty. So we're going to import data. We're going to look for the data, and that's the one, right? States.json. Let me go ahead and open it. And let's go ahead and import that. And as you can see, we got 4,882 documents imported successfully. All right. Okay. Now we're going to import, or we're going to load some data from a relational database management system into MongoDB. Okay. So I got this schema here called geography. Just so you know, we're using MySQL here. Okay. So inside of this schema called geography, we got this table here called cities. Okay. And that's what the table looks like. Okay. So our goal is to get this table inside of MongoDB. Okay. So let me go ahead and show you how that's done. So for this one, we're going to use Python. First of all, you're going to import pandas. We're going to also import PyMongo. There's something called SQL Alchemy. Okay, since we are connecting with SQL, you're going to need that. But before we get started, make sure you pip install SQL Alchemy and PyMySQL. If you want to know more about SQL Alchemy, there should be another video on my channel. Okay, so yeah. First of all, we're going to connect Python to SQL. So in order to do that, we got this method here called createEngine. That's part of the SQL Alchemy that we just imported. And this here is our connection string. Okay. So up until here, you can just copy and paste it. Okay, there should be no difference there. But the root is the name of the username of the RDBMS. Okay. Password is the password of the username. Okay. 3306 is the port number of the database, and geography is the name of the schema. Okay, make sure it's the exact same name here. So now we're going to use pandas here, and there's this method called read SQL table. It takes in two arguments. The first argument is which table you want to get into Python from MySQL. So that's right, we want to get this data or this table called cities, right? So that's the first argument. The second argument is the engine that we would have created here. Okay. So once that's done, so all we're doing is we're putting that inside of a Python data frame. Now, our data from MySQL is in Python already. It's inside of this data frame called df. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to connect to MongoDB like we saw before. Okay. And so if you remember, if this collection exists we're only going to use it. And in our case, we just created it in the Mongo Compass a couple moments ago. Okay, so we're just going to use that database that we created before, but cities does not exist, so it gets created, right? Okay, all we're going to do is we're going to insert this data frame inside of our collection here called cities. Okay, but before we insert it though, we're going to convert that data frame into a Python dictionary. So that's why we're using this method here called toDict, and that goes inside of this method called insert many, and that should be good. So it's going to take a couple seconds here. Okay, so it's been successful. Let's go ahead and count the number of documents that we have. As you can see, that's 147,000 documents. Let's also take a look at the result from the Mongo Compass. So that's our Mongo Compass. We don't see the cities here, so we're gonna have to refresh it. And now we got our new collection. And as you can see, the count matches. And yeah, our import has been carried out successfully. Mongo dump and Mongo restore. Mongo dump dumps your databases or collections into your local system. It's used to back up your data from MongoDB. But Mongo restore does the exact opposite. It helps you load the Mongo dump files back into your MongoDB database. So before we get started, let's go ahead and see what the data looks like. So I'm back in the Mongo Compass. So we're going to take a look at how to back up this database that's called geography. Okay. So how do we do that? So if you want to dump a whole database, we're going to mention the name of the database, and that should be good. If you want to dump a specific collection, we're going to do it this way. But in our case, we're going to dump the whole collection. So let's go ahead and see how that's done. So I got it all loaded up in the terminal already. So all we got to do is run this. Now, as you can see, our documents have been dumped successfully. So where is this backup file stored at? That's what I'm going to show you right now. You're going to have to go to the user, and if you see here, this folder called dump is going to be created automatically. And inside of it, we can see our collection or our database here. And we can see all three of our collections. So now we're going to take a look at Mongo restore. And we're going to restore this one here that's called countries. And whenever you restore something, you're going to have to use the json file, okay? All right. But before we get started on that, let's go to the Mongo Atlas, because that's where we're going to restore this dump file. So Mongo Atlas is a cloud database from MongoDB, okay? So right now, if I go to collections here, we have no data currently, but we're going to restore it back in here, okay? But if you want to restore something into your local MongoDB instance, we can do it this way. So make sure you specify your database and collection where you want to restore this into. And after your collections, you're going to put a space, and then you're going to mention your path to your dump file. Okay, so once again, make sure that it's a json. Okay, but like I said, we're going to restore this into Mongo Atlas. Okay, but in order to do that, you're going to need a connection string. So I'm going to show you how to get your Mongo restore connection string. All you're going to have to do is go to command line tools here. If you scroll a bit down, you're going to find it right here. Okay. But instead of password, you're going to punch in your actual password of the database. Okay. And after your connection string, once again, you're going to hit a space and you're going to mention the path to your dump file. So I just copied this here. And as you can see, that's my connection string. That's my password. Okay. Now after the connection string, I have mentioned the location of the dump file. So let's go ahead and see this in action. Okay. So as you can see, 250 documents have been restored successfully. Okay. Once again, let's go back to the Atlas now. And if I go back to collections, we're going to find the collection called countries. All right. So our restore has been carried out successfully. Now, if you want to connect Python to Mongo Atlas, we're going to do it this way. So first of all, you're going to import PyMongo. And then to establish your connection, once again, you're going to use Mongo client. But your connection string here is going to be different compared to before. Let me go ahead and show you how to get your connection string. Go back to Mongo Atlas. If you go to Overview, and there's this option called Connect. You're going to hit Connect your application. In our case, we're using Python. So replace your password with the actual password. And instead of my first database, you're going to punch in the database that you want to work with. You got to copy this and paste it here inside of Mongo client. But just make sure that it's in double quotation marks. Okay. So I've changed the password. I've also changed the database to geography, since geography is the database that we want to work with. So I've run this cell here and that's been successful. Now, if I want to look at the database's names, we're going to use the same method as we saw earlier. Okay. So as you can see, we got our collection or our database that's called geography here. If you want to look at the collection names, same method as before, list collection names, and our collection is here as well. Last but not least, let's look at the documents. So once again, we're going to use the same method as before, and call here is going to be the database, or I'm sorry, the collection that we have here. That's called countries. Okay. Now, I'm not going to print the whole document. We're only going to get the name, phone code, and the currency. Let's go ahead and run this. As you can see, that's been successful as well. If you want to get your data from MongoDB into a Python data frame, we're going to do it this way. So first of all, we're going to import pandas, and then we're going to connect to the same Mongo Atlas database. Okay. So the database we're working with here is geography. The collection is countries. We also got our documents in here. So if you want to convert this to a data frame, we're going to use this method here called data frame. And before we pass in the documents, we're going to convert it to a list and then it goes in. Okay. So let's go ahead and see if this works. Alright, as you can see, that's been successful as well. So Mongo Atlas is a cloud database. It also uses a connection string that's auto-generated. And I showed you earlier how to get those connection strings. You can also connect to Mongo Atlas from around the world. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found it useful. Thank you.